Okay, Sam Bradshaw, S11, he breaks down X's and O's and also does a great job with the videos to try to say this is why something either will work or won't work or why it didn't or did work. And he joins us on Fridays at 5:30. Sam, thank you very much for your time. So I know it's Texas State tomorrow. I want you, because you do a great job of this as well, in the end, what happened to Baylor other than the fact the team they played was really, really good? What happened to their passing game?
Well, I think what happened is they just were mixed up on their assignments on protection. They had some new receivers that weren't rising to the occasion on some routes. They also had new running backs that weren't seeing exactly the cutback lanes and the pass protection assignments as well as they should have. And it was just a disjointed performance. BYU is a solid team, but that defense was not all world last year, and most of those guys are the same. If you played this game in October, I think you would see a very different offensive outcome, regardless of location, regardless of who you've got. It was just a very sloppy performance. You had maximum protections where they let somebody through. You had 7-man protections that didn't handle a simple defensive tackle twist stunt for almost immediate pressure on Chapin. And then you even had plays where Chapin opened the wrong way and all his passing options are to the left and Chapin's looking to the right. You know, it's just a whole bunch of disjointed things. You hate that it happened. You're happy that it happened with a team outside the Big 12 because it really doesn't impact your ability to get to Dallas. But it was just a very, very sloppy game. And they've got to clean it up. And I think they will, because Texas State, you know, everybody's saying, well, you went on the road for a quarterback's first start against a team outside the Big 12 and you were held to 20 points and your passing game looked lackluster. That's exactly what happened in San Marcos last year.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
How concerned should we be about the wide receivers not winning on those routes? Was it the protection that was a problem, or was winning on routes also an issue?
Well, a lot of what BYU is doing, and they're well coached, and they run the same offensive scheme. So their entire philosophy is bend but don't break. They know that their secondary most years is not going to anchor anyone's 4x100 relay team. So it's a lot like an Iowa or an Iowa State where they're keeping you in front of them and they're forcing you to execute. So it wasn't necessarily the receivers as much as it was the protection, because as long as the protection holds, Chapin can scramble. Chapin can check down. He can go through his progression. He can buy time. But if you're giving up immediate pressure on a lot of things, it's not going to go well for you. And then beyond that, it impacts the plays that come after it, because that timer in his head speeds up when he has unexpected pressure come very quickly early in the game. You know, so I'd put more of it on the upfront protection. You've got a new starter at guard. You've also got a de facto new starter at right tackle as long as Keith is out. So, you know, I would put it more on the protection. And they've got to get better, because a lot of the simple stuff that you saw BYU do to them, Texas State's going to try the exact same thing. And Texas State gave them a lot of man coverage last year. They may mix that up based off what BYU did. But at the same time, Baylor didn't respond well to it last year. I mean, they were able to win, and the game shouldn't have been as close as it was last year. You had a couple of penalties extend drives, including a running into the punter. And you had some just badly missed deep balls that were open. So, I mean, it shouldn't have been as close as it was, but you're talking about a game where they had the ball with a chance to go win it late. And that's not what you're looking for when you're playing a team from the Sun Belt.
Did you see the offensive line perhaps get better as the game went along? It seemed like there towards the end. I mean, I realized part of it was because they felt like they couldn't pass very well, but they were able to just kind of put their heads down and find some spots in the running game.
Absolutely. And the entire offense, including the passing game, got back to kind of what you expect them to do against a Power 5 opponent, at least in terms of yards per drive and sack-adjusted yards per pass attempt. They got back to a lot of that. And I think they went from like less than 10 yards per drive for most of the first half. And then starting with that last drive of the first half, going through the end of the game, it was somewhere between like 45 and 50 yards a drive, which is really good. So, I mean, they were moving the ball from that point on. But it was just so disjointed, and they left a lot of opportunities on the field. You know, Chapin missed the pass in the corner of the end zone. You've got backs, you know, with the wide zone is predicated on you're stressing the defense laterally with the goal of having the vision to make a vertical cut and get upfield. Well, there's a lot of cuts they missed, and those could have been 15, 20-yard gains. And those were left on the field. You know, the offense got better as the game went on, and I'm expecting improvement in Waco. But, man, just watching that tape, they let one they should have won get away from them because they didn't handle their business.
Well, they shouldn't have gotten their lunch meal. That it was a knockdown, drag-out game, and pretty much what we expected. Did you see Chapin? Obviously, his quarterback rating was very, very low, like the second worst among everybody in the Big 12, actually ahead of Donovan Smith, who won Big 12 Player of the Week. Did you see him maybe blink for the first time?
Well, it's a young kid on his first hostile road environment that he's had. You know, the Big 12 title game was majority OSU fans, but you still had a Baylor cheering section, and Jerry World's not going to be as loud as a lot of college venues with student sections dedicated to going as crazy as you can get. You know, I think at times he tensed up, but whether or not that's the moment or whether it's the fact that on your first couple drives you had a near immediate pressure from play calls that should have given you ample time, you know, I could see 6 of one, half a dozen of the other on that one. I think he'll be fine going forward because, I mean, the guy came in cold turkey in a very loud environment in Manhattan, Kansas, and won. And the Big 12 title game, for all the stuff I just said about it, is still a very high-pressure venue, and Oklahoma State was putting it all on him to deliver very quickly, and he answered. So I think the kid will bounce back. But, you know, it was just a difficult night.
Sam Bradshaw, S11 on the site, football analyst for us on 365 Sports.
Obviously, lost Monterey Baldwin after the first half, and Tate McWilliams as well. Who do you feel is their best second option at running back?
Their best second option at running back, in terms of seeing the holes and hitting them with authority, despite the fact he's a little smaller, Squirrel Williams appears to be that guy right now. But obviously, you don't want to run him like crazy because he's a smaller guy and he'll get beat up. And then also, you'd like to mix in some of the bigger guys, particularly for some of those short yardage runs where they can lean forward. You know, I think Quaylon Jones progressed from where a lot of the guys had seen him, but he's still pretty tentative on seeing the holes. And I think that'll get better as he gets more snaps. You know, you're really hoping you can get everybody back healthy and that guys can just get better at the little things, because this is a team that absolutely has the talent to go win the Big 12. This is a team that has the potential to go win the Big 12. But they have to play better than they were doing. And it's not necessarily what their opponent was doing. They've got to go and just be a better version of Baylor.
Sam, that was a very physical contest. I thought the Baylor defense answered the call as best they could. And obviously, you know, Jaron Hall was able to do some nice things. I mean, he's just a good player. You know, good players are still going to make plays no matter how you play. And Chase Roberts was a little bit of a revelation for their receiving group. But defensively, how do you think they played overall? And what areas, if any, were maybe ones that stood out to you as like, okay, that's kind of like the offense. That's something they need to work on.
Well, I think some of the single coverage guys got beat early in routes, and that's going to have to improve as they get more reps in the current positions they're in, because you got Walcott playing more in that nickel spot, and then you've also got Lorando Johnson outside when he was playing inside last year. So you want to see them get a little better there. And then beyond that, it was really when they got tired at elevation up front that things really wound down for them, because early on it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. The entire game they couldn't run on Baylor. And it was really whatever Jaron Hall could buy time and do and drop in perfectly. Jaron Hall is an outstanding quarterback. Probably, if he's not the best one that Baylor faced this year or last year, he's going to be, it's not going to take long to get to him. He's a guy that just made a ton of great plays. And a lot of what Baylor was doing defensively is they were keeping extra help back just to keep BYU in front of them, because they knew they couldn't run on them. They knew they didn't have to devote extra guys to stop BYU's run game. And from there, as good as BYU is, that Baylor defensive front is that good. But when you do that against a mobile quarterback and you're trying to rush under control so he doesn't escape the pocket and take off for like 50 yards, as you see some other mobile guys get the benefit of when teams try and play coverage, playing that way over the course of the entire game, it takes a lot out of your defensive linemen. And there were multiple times where those defensive linemen were under control in their rush lanes, and they tried to run quarterback draws at them. And Baylor blew it up because of the way those guys were technique playing it. But over time, the number of snaps increased, and especially at elevation when you're not used to it, they wore down, and BYU was able to start getting more and more time, and they were able to make more plays.
So what do you expect tomorrow, Texas State? Anything in particular you want to see or what you expect to see either way with what Baylor does on offense or defense?
Well, what I expect to see is Baylor's defense play really well. Texas State, they've got a couple really good outside receivers that they're going to try and scheme up, but much like they were able to do to Ole Miss and much like they were able to do to OU and what they were able to do recently against BYU, I think Baylor's going to be able to stop the run and really keep the safeties back and make it really tough for them to get those one-on-one shots. And I don't think Texas State's going to be able to run the ball. And unlike last year, Brady McBride's gone. They got Lane Hatcher, who, assuming you have a running game and you can protect him, is going to be an upgrade over McBride as a passer. But he is nowhere near the scrambler, buy time, make plays downfield guy that McBride was. He's a lot better in terms of accurately delivering balls to different areas of the field when you protect him. But if you can't protect him, it's going to be a lot easier assignment for Baylor. Assuming they get some pressure on him, I think they're going to be able to stop that offense. The other side of the ball, though, Texas State, they haven't played very good offenses, but they've held them to pretty low yards per drive and have done a pretty good job defensively. And they've got a lot of veteran guys. They've hit the transfer portal like crazy on both sides of the ball, but especially the defense. And they're going to throw everything they see on film at Baylor, and they're going to make them show that they can adjust to it. And I think Baylor's going to be a little beat up coming out of that BYU game. I think Baylor will improve and have better execution, but I don't think it's going to be everything we want to see, but I think it'll be a comfortable win and a stepping stone going into Ames.
Sam, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I know you got a lot of work on your plate, and you always join us on Fridays around 5:30. We appreciate it. Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com, 365 Sports Football Analyst with us to kind of break down the X's and O's, and he does a great job with it.